Parit, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, Elliot. Thank you very much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here in person in Nairobi, Kenya as well. I've come to your city to do this. And what is it that you did this morning?
We had a photo shoot this morning, which was the culmination of the 90-day challenge we embarked on earlier this year.
And how did that experience feel to be in front of a camera for the very first time in that sense, to take your shirt off in the middle of a busy gym?
I mean, like I was telling you at the gym, it's the first time that I think I've ever taken my shirt off at a gym. So it was a bit of a surreal experience. I've only ever seen myself in the images that I've sent to you. Seeing myself in seeing the back and seeing the rest of the body in someone else's eyes, in this instance, the cameraman's eyes, it was a bit surreal. It's nice to know what has been achieved. I actually look forward to seeing the images that have come out of the photo shoot today.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to forget your face when you saw yourself on that camera lens and you're like, wow, that's me on the other side of it. It's incredible. Yeah. So what I'm particularly curious about, because we've done round one of this podcast, and we've also done round one of this fat loss phase, and you lost a significant amount of weight, a good over 5 kilos, I would say at least. What inspired you to go for round two? Most people would have been very content with what you achieved, even less than what you achieved. What inspired you to think, actually, I'm going to take on this challenge?
I like challenging my body, like challenging my mind, just to understand what the human body is capable of. And I think even in phase one, we did try and challenge what we thought was sufficient, and then we pushed the boundary. And I think that sort of set the tone that, okay, we did achieve, we did maintain somewhat, we were able to do that. Now what comes next? And it was essentially just trying to challenge myself that what else can we achieve now that we achieved this. So it was more like a personal journey, just to see what the human body is capable of achieving.
Yeah, and I remember our conversation before Christmas, and we were speaking about becoming a little bit more disciplined when January was going to come around. But what do you think it would have been like had we not gone down the route of the photo shoot? Do you think you would have got the similar type of results, or do you think it would have been harder to commit yourself in the way that you did this time around?
So two things. I think this year we celebrate 10 years with Sandhya and I. It's I made a wild promise to her when we were getting married. I didn't know how I was going to ever honor that. And I told her, underneath all these layers of fat, there's a six-pack hiding. So it was one of those things that, I don't know what serendipity or subconscious power, whatever you might want to call it, but ultimately it came down to that. And after the first fat loss phase, in the mirror, I could see that there is something that could pop out if I worked towards it. So I think that sort of got the thought process going and essentially led us back into phase two, so that we could see that, okay, not just what I was imagining, we could make that a reality.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost like your intention for the year aligned with my vision for what was going to come next, and they perfectly aligned to the point where we were able to bring this to life. So round two got you from 88 kilos down to 75.4 kilos as of today. So a good 13 kilos this time around. How surreal does it feel to like lift up your shirt and be like, there's abs underneath here? How surreal does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think I still keep sending you photos to check that they're still there. So
It's still there.
my eyes still sort of deceive me that when I take that image, I can't see the horizontal lines in the abs, but they're there. And then when I send you the photo, I show Sandhya the photo, then she's like, yep, they're still there. So yeah, it's a different feeling. I think this one is going to take a bit of getting used to, just to understand that, yep. I think this time it's more, I have to be ready to accept the reward of the challenge that we embarked on and what we've achieved. And I think that's what's different in this phase.
Can you tell us about what happened when you first started to see the outlines, and what you asked your wife of, like, where are the lines supposed to be?
Yeah, that's a funny story. So I first saw the vertical lines came through initially, where the abs came, and then I mean I didn't know what abs look like. Like, you know, from the size I was to what I am now, I didn't know. I'd only seen abs on, well, images of other people. So when the abs first came through, the top two came through, and then I asked Sandhya, I'm just like, where the rest of them meant to be. Like, is it above the belly button or below the belly button? So she looked at me like I was a bit aloof, but I told her, you have to understand where we came from. So then we sort of went on this exploration phase together.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I think many people, when they come back in and they do a second round of this journey, maybe they gained a little bit of weight after their first fat loss phase. They don't necessarily need to lose 10, 15 kilos again. Maybe they need to lose 3 to 5. They have this expectation that actually round 2 is going to be easier than round 1, interestingly enough. And that's sometimes not always the case. Sometimes it is the case. So what was different between round 1? I know this round was much quicker, but mentally, physically, how did you feel the difference between both of those different journeys?
I mean, round 1 was, okay, well, if we focus more on the round 2 side, I think that it'd be more pertinent. Round 2, I felt, was more a psychological challenge rather than a physical challenge, because through phase 1, we had understood that what we can achieve, because we did the activities, we did the gym, we did the fat loss. So, it was a combination of everything. So the mind and the body knew that we could do the exercise if we put our mind to it. Yeah. I think the psychological barriers that we create for ourselves, navigating those was probably a more interesting learning for me in phase 2. And I think when I look at it back now with hindsight, I think it truly it completed the transformation in a sense.
Yes.
So the first transformation was physical, the second transformation was psychological, and now you get sort of a complete human being. And I can see that during the maintenance phase, the flows that I had developed in my own methods or in my own lifestyle, that was allowing calories to creep in. And it wasn't anything quick. It was just, it was slowly sustained and things. So having this phase 2 and viewing it from a purely psychological perspective really opened my eyes into how we can now live a much more sustained and healthy lifestyle going forward. So I think from a phase 2 perspective, the bigger challenge was psychological rather than the physical aspect of it.
And if you had to give me a black and white answer of which phase was harder, would you say round 1 or round 2?
I've never looked at any of the phases as harder. I've always looked at them as journeys to not particularly a finite destination per se, but it's a phase, essentially. I mean, we call it a phase, like transformation or fat loss phase 1, fat loss phase 2. So it was a phase. They both had their challenges in a different way. But because of everything that we went through in the first instance, or in phase 1, phase 2 I was able to manage my mood and my emotions much better in phase 2. So we already had a leg up starting phase 2 because of what we had gone through before.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think they were challenging in different perspectives.
Yeah.
Phase 1 was, I didn't truly understand the emotions that were happening in a calorie deficit. In phase 2, I understood that when I'm in a calorie deficit, there will be emotions.
Yes.
So it was, how do I navigate those? So perhaps I think, just to address your question or to answer the question more accurately or in black and white, would be phase 1 was harder physically, phase 2 was harder psychologically.
Mm-hmm. I think that quite often most people underestimate the second round. And I think that what I've realized is that when you go into the first phase, of course you try to drop weight in the past, but when you start with myself or a different type of training program or anything, it's quite new. You're not really sure what to expect. So you kind of just throw yourself into it. You take each week as it comes. But like you said, you had this awareness of what was going to be part of this next phase. And I think that's almost more difficult in some ways. I think that naivety in a way of not really knowing what comes next in round 1 is actually really quite advantageous. So I always encourage people, if they're in round 1 and they are doing quite well, keep pushing, because if they stop for like a year or so and they try and come back and do it again, and then there's weight that they have to re-lose again, it's almost harder because if they haven't really been able to maintain that momentum, which would have been much easier to maintain the first time, because it's much easier to maintain momentum than it is to restart a journey all over again with the expectation of like, okay, now I know what comes. And like I said, I think that naivety in some ways can be very, very valuable as well. So it's interesting that that's your take as well. So now I am interested in sustainability. What I heard when we were at the event yesterday, I think a lot of people have questions about whether your plan is sustainable. How are you going to possibly continue to do this? But obviously between you and I and the coaching that we've done, we know that the plan is quite sustainable. You've had your religious meals out every single week with your family, same as you did in round one. You were drinking for the vast majority of the process, not a huge amount, but you were having alcoholic drinks. Talk about how sustainable this second phase was, because I think a lot of people are going to be quite surprised to hear this.
I think the timing was also quite opportunistic when we did it Jan to March, because a lot of people are also in that health space
On
at
the
that
wagon
time.
again, yep.
But from a sustainability perspective, I think we've had these conversations that like, this is a lifestyle. This is how I want to lead my life. I enjoy having my wine. I enjoy having a drink with my friends, with my family. I enjoy going out for meals with my family. So we've always had that factored into our plans that, okay, we will have a meal out with the family. You will have social occasions. So this time was setting myself a standard and living up to that. So if I told myself that I'm going to have 2 drinks and then stopping at the 2 drinks, I think that was very, very powerful for me. One thing I started doing when I was in that peer pressure zone or in that social setting was, instead of looking at it at that moment, I was looking at it the day after. So I was saying, how do I want to feel tomorrow? Because I know I could say yes now, and I'll regret tomorrow. But do I really want to feel that regret tomorrow, or do I really want to do that? And I found a different form of joy and power in saying no today so that I can wake up tomorrow fresher, or knowing that I set myself a standard and I achieved it. And that's sort of now become the driving force for sustainability, where I'm able to look at tomorrow rather than the immediate satisfaction and the joy of today. And that's where I feel the biggest change has come.
Yeah, and I feel like it's such a major life hack as well. It's just to think of your future self. It's so much easier to make good long-term decisions when you're thinking not of yourself in this moment, but yourself in the future. It will allow people to avoid so many challenges that they will put themselves into just by thinking, okay, what is this actually going to have in the downstream effects of this? And like I said in one of my talks, is that short-term gratification is very, very short-lived. Long-term gratification gives you both short and long-term. Realistically, you get that moment of saying, I was able to evade the peer pressure. I was able to stick to my word. I was able to align with the person that I want to be. And that's an immediate win in itself. And that lasts for a good amount of time. It's much quicker than the taste of, whatever you're having when you're not in the mode of needing to have that. And then you step on the scales the next day. Then you wake up fresh and early for your workout the next day. So it's so important. I think it's something I really want to drive home, because I think that if people could just lock that mindset in, they would have a lot more success on their journey as well. And you mentioned psychologically it was much more difficult in round 2. Can you dig into that a little bit more? What do you mean by psychologically it was more difficult?
That's a deep question. I'll try to address that. I mean, I've never verbalized these thoughts. I've penned them down in my journal, but I've never verbalized them to someone else. So psychologically, it was not peer pressure that I found psychologically challenging. I found psychologically challenging was living up to my own expectation. A lot of times on this journey, you succumb. You end up having 3 pieces of chocolate when you intended 1. And in that moment, you just say it's okay and you get back on the wagon tomorrow. But when you keep doing that again and again, it becomes psychologically draining. So you then start questioning yourself. They're like, why do I keep doing it? You allow self-doubt to creep in. Self-sabotage becomes a big factor in this. That like when you start getting closer and closer to your accomplishment, because you're not ready to accept the reward of it, you start you start having that extra piece of chocolate and things like that. And so you create these excuses for yourself, so that at the finish line, if you haven't achieved your goal, you've already built an army of excuses. So I think pushing all that out of my mindset, that was where the psychological, so I had to utilize a lot of my mental energy into saying that I've set a standard and I'm going to honor that standard. And I think that's where the mental energy or the psychological energy, I think that's where it got applied. The peer pressure side, I think now people see me and they have an expectation that like, if they offer me a drink and I have it, I'll have a drink. If they offer me a drink and I won't, that's the end of the story. Then nobody's going to be able to say that just have, and I'll have another one. So I think psychologically was more an internal battle rather than an external battle. And that's where the challenge was, that to make sure that I essentially accelerate to the finish line rather than create speed bumps for my own success.
Yeah, and so many people do that. So many people who I work with could probably have completed their journey in probably 30% less of the time, 50% less of the time, had they just stuck to the word and the thing that they said that they were going to do. It blows my mind, but it also doesn't, because of I know the nature of human nature in that sense, and it's very clear to see. And I'm curious because you said you used just a lot of mental energy to get through these battles. What did that exactly look like? Was it you having conversations with yourself? Was it you saying specifically, like, I have this value, this expectation of myself to live up to, and just trying to quiet the noise as much as possible? You mentioned journaling. You've never mentioned to me that you've ever seen any psychologist or therapist or anything like that. What are your practices to keep your mental shape in the sharpest form possible?
I read a lot this time. I picked up a book. Whenever I felt there was a challenge or something, I'd pick up a book and I'd do steps while reading. I found motion really helped me. Motion helped. It helped defer, and it helped me to put a realistic spin on it. Mm-hmm. So in that moment, like there were many times where I was sitting, we have two young kids. Weekends can be extremely challenging, especially when they start getting frustrated and they get bored and things like that, and they get in your head. So one of the things I did with the kids this time was that when it was getting to the point where I was about to succumb because of just the intensity of the situation, I told them, let's go for a bike ride, or let's go out, or let's go for a walk. And I found that motion really helped me navigate the psychological aspect of it. So in this sense, I read a lot. I journaled a bit more deeper. So I was able to put my thoughts down in a much more precise manner. Yeah. I think that was profoundly beneficial to me. And reading and motion, that helped me a lot. And I this time I stayed ahead of my pitfalls. So like if I knew that on a weekend it will get intense, I already created a framework to ensure that it never got to that stage.
Very nice.
So if I knew that at X amount of time, generally it gets a bit heated, 15 minutes before that, I'd start getting the thought in the family's head that, okay, let's go for a bike ride, let's go for a walk, let's get motion in. So I understood where the challenges were likely to come, and I stayed ahead of them and tried to prevent them from becoming an issue. So that's where the difference came in.
I like that. And I want to reinstate those 4 strategies because I think they're very helpful for people to lock onto. And I would also just go down the route of the one that aligns most with you. So it's journaling was one, and taking it as deep as you feel necessary. The second was motion, and just getting yourself into a groove of moving with yourself or with your family. The third was reading. And then it was anticipation of anything that could come up as well. And I think that's genius as well, because of so many problems can be navigated if we just think a little bit further in advance. As a recurring theme already is thinking in advance about how we want to feel, and it's thinking in advance about what potential pitfalls might end up happening. And I say that to a lot of people as well. It's like sometimes it's not necessarily about navigating the situation, it's just clearing the path, right? There might not actually be anything that's going to trip you.
That's a great way to look at
it. Yeah, it's not necessarily there's going to be a problem that comes up. It's just like, okay, how can you make sure that Monday to Sunday there's going to be nothing that throws you off from you staying on track? And I think that's genius in that sense, because of it's not always going to be a problem. It's just going to be, okay, let me just make sure that the path is completely clear so I can just glide on through. And a challenge might come your way, but if you can solve 80% of it before it comes around, it's much easier to handle 20% than 20 plus the 80 that could have come based on a lack of preparedness. So I think it's genius as well. I like that a lot. It's a really good perspective. And I think, a lot of people want practical strategies, as we've discussed before. So I think that's something that a lot of people can lock onto. And you've mentioned your family a couple of times as well. How have they been during this second phase of the journey? They've obviously seen, like you said, you lose a human in the process in terms of weights. So how are they feeling about this all? I'm sure your kids have got more than enough opinions on these changes as well. Your wife too. I'd love to hear more about that.
They've been very supportive. I mean, I couldn't thank Sandhya enough. I think she's been extremely supportive. I couldn't achieve what I've achieved without her by my side. I think she started me on this whole phase, and to have her still be witnessing all the transformations, I think that's it's just a feather in the cap for the family and for her as well. My daughter is a bit older now. She understands what is happening. she's extremely curious to meet you, by the way, because she hears the name Elliot once a week. That what's Elliot's meal plan? So she's extremely curious to meet you, but she's been quite supportive, and I see that because they see me in motion and they see me in movement, they have that windfall benefit that they also want to have motion.
Yes.
My son is he's still quite little. He learned how to ride his bike on two wheels without ever having balances or anything, simply because we were in motion every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a scooty, and then he had a balance bike. And one day he's just like, oh, I want to be like my sister and I'll ride a bike, because if we're going every Sunday for a walk or something, I want to ride my bike. And he just popped on his bike and he learnt it in sort of like 2 Sundays he learnt it. So it's been a joy to be part of this journey and have them seeing that some of the habits that their dad has built is helping them for their future self. But my son's a cheeky little sod, so he keeps seeing my photos every Saturday at the check-in, and he just comes, "Haha, Dad, I can see you naked." So that's probably his memory of this. But as a family, I think it's been beneficial to the whole family.
Yeah, Sandia started it all.
She did.
Yeah.
She was the one who brought me to you.
She was. And it's funny how life ends up like that as well. And we've had multiple conversations about how maybe all of this between you and I and the journey that we've been on together, there's a possibility that it might have not even happened, you know, and here we are today with a lot achieved. So it's incredible to see it all. And on the note of your family as well, I asked this question when I was a guest on a podcast recently of how you intend to ensure that health and wellness is a part of your children's life, but without getting it to a stage where it feels too compulsive, too obsessive. A lot of parents are afraid of like putting different traumas into their children based on their own nutritional habits or their own exercise habits. Obviously, I know that you're leading by example, but how do you intend to allow them to continue to be kids and continue to eat and drink potentially the things that they might want to from time to time, or exercise in the way that they want to, without almost giving them that we've given them the freedom to have their own interpretation of what health and wellness is for them, not what you believe it is for them, if that makes sense.
It does, but then I also think it's one and the same in a way that like your health and fitness is also your family's health and fitness. Ultimately, we as adults we're expected to live by conscious decisions. You know, we make conscious choices. Do you have the dairy milk or do you have the 70%? It's a choice that we've made. So we impart the same choices on our children. We don't force them to have anything. You know, it's like you need to have a fruit. You need to have a balanced meal. So the whole idea is we're giving them optionality where they're making conscious decisions on their own accord. Like if we go back to the bike riding as an example, they picked up, or my son chose to ride the bike. We never told him that, look, the bike was always there. He had always seen it. He chose to ride the bike. So it was a conscious choice that he made. When we have part of my meal plan is overnight oats. So the kids would see me make overnight oats. I never once told them, do you guys want overnight oats? And one day they came to me and said, Dad, can you make overnight oats for us without the protein powder? And I said, sure. So we made exactly the same thing. At the end, I put protein powder in mine, and theirs I just made it without protein powder. And now it's become a habit for them. Every week they ask for protein powder. Similarly, Sandhya has a chia pudding as one of her plans, and she loves it. And she was making it, and the kids said, "What's in there?" And then you know that when they see you sort of dress up your food with fruits and little nuts and stuff like that, it sort of gets them going as well.
Yeah.
So we try and guide them to make conscious decisions rather than enforcing anything. You want an ice cream? Here you go. Here's ice cream without reason. You know, there's never an attachment to it. It's not a reward mechanism for us in the household.
Very important.
You want a crepe with chocolate? That's okay. You've had your crepe. How are you going to balance it through the rest of the day? So we're trying to teach them that it's okay to have it, but then how are you going to balance it? How are you going to compensate? Are you going to do movement? Are you going to have a fruit? What are you going to do? And if you are having a treat, what is your balance perspective? So it's sort of the message is it keeps going ingrained in their mind that we have to make conscious decisions for our own health.
Yeah. And I love that you're not using food as a reward per se either, because I think that that's something that parents do with such good intentions, but they don't realize the impact that it may end up having downstream because of, as I mentioned in a couple of my talks, is that people start to rely on food for emotional support, managing their stress and all these different types of things. And what they don't actually recognize is those habits and behaviors started at a very, very young age because
if I use my example with you, we've been working together for 4 years.
Yes.
It took me until perhaps I think like maybe January or February this year to truly break free of emotional eating.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just goes to show you how deeply ingrained it is.
So deep.
For the first time in my life, I actually feel that I am free of emotions when I'm eating.
Wow.
So I'm able to eat my meals consciously with choices that I made. And it's got no emotion attached to it that am I happy? Am I sad? It's meal time. This is my meal. Let's enjoy all the full contents of it. So for the first time in my life, and I mean like we've gone through a very deep transformation in this phase 2 as well. And to look back and say that it took so many years to get to this point, I think it's one of the most liberating feelings that you can have.
Yes.
And that's how deeply ingrained it is in all of us. I mean, 90% of us will pop over to our mom's house and first thing we'll do is run to the snack cabinet because you've got memories from school.
100%.
And it's only now, like now when I pop over to my mom's house, there's nothing. Like I have no inclination to go to the snack cupboard or to go where the chocolates are. You just sort of know it. I walk in and the other day I sort of sat to myself and I was like, wow, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
So when we talk about like the psychological aspect of phase 2, these are all the sort of trigger points and things that when you liberate yourself from them, it's one of the most freeing feelings that you can ever have.
Yeah, something that makes me laugh about myself is sometimes I go home to Oxford and I open the same cupboard that I would. And I just look and then I shut it again because it's just so habitual to go back to there. But I'm like, again, like it doesn't even mean that I want anything, but it's just such a habitual thing. And I'm opening it and wait a minute, no, I don't need to do this anymore. But like you said, it's ingrained so deep. And something important that I want to highlight that was really important there was the fact that when you're on a journey like this and you have come up, you basically need to make sure that you face these things. You need to look at them for what they are. You need to be very transparent with them. And the emotional eating piece is something I want to bring to light here, because a lot of people will say, when you say what you just said in terms of like, it doesn't relate to whether I'm happy or sad, etc. That's so important because when I tell people that, food is, again, we get enjoyment from food. And this is the point. You still get joy from food when you eat it, but it's not as if your emotions are dictating what you should eat and ensuring this is how you should feel off the back of it. Because I think that when you say that to people, a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's going to be really boring. Like food brings a lot of joy to life. So they take it in the wrong way. And they take it in the sense that, okay, I can only look at food as fuel now. And I don't necessarily fully align with that as well. Food can certainly fuel performance, but also food I know is an accompaniment to beautiful moments that we have in our life. It's an accompaniment. It was a celebration in a way that we had after the photo shoot today. We were all kind of bonding around food after these big achievements that you all went through. And I think everyone has this idea that, okay, well, food has to become fuel or I only kind of emotionally eat. And that's not the point. It's that your emotions shouldn't dictate what you eat, but they can allow you to have joy in your life as well. And I think that's something important that you mentioned there, is that you can remove those attachments and those emotions that lead you to make the certain decisions, but you can still have joy. You can still have enjoyment from the foods that you eat, whether they are on the quote unquote unhealthy side, or you find ways to make them quite well integrated into a healthy lifestyle as well. So I actually think that's a very, very good point to make as well. So speaking of leading by example, obviously you're leading by example within your family and your household now. You're also leading by example and you've got a lot of people looking at your journey when it comes to the city that we're in right now. You mentioned on stage yesterday that there wasn't many people on this journey with you when you got started, and there certainly wasn't, right? Like there really wasn't. And then obviously you transitioned over to coming back to Nairobi and there was still not that many people doing it with you. So how have you taken that role in your community as kind of the person that people look towards to as the example? And that's what you've essentially become. Did you ever expect to become that either?
I still don't think I took the role. I think it just sort of, it sort of came with the territory. I'm not sure how or why or whatever it was, but I think I felt that if my journey could inspire and help even one person, then it was worth sharing. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of comments now in passing, like after our session yesterday, that you inspired us, and it never occurred to me that my journey was inspiring other people. I did my journey. I mean, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast as well, that like to achieve this sort of success on this journey, you have to be selfish.
Yes.
We may amend it to say selfless, but in reality, there's a lot of sacrifices you make from a social life, other things as well, but you have to be a bit selfish. I never quite anticipated to be a role model or an inspiration to other people, but I'm glad to see that I'm able to help people and guide them. And the more people come and talk to me, the more I'm happy to share my insight with them. I still find it a bit surreal to be recognized as sort of the inspiration for so many journeys. I still find that it's unfair credit to me. I don't know if it's an acceptance level issue or what it is, but I find that we're a community together. It's not that I am a leader and you're a follower. It's we're on this journey together, and that's the perspective that I look at it from. That I went on this journey, I embarked on this journey, I saw success on this journey. I'm happy to share my success with you. So we grow together as a community. No man is an island. So how do we as a community get better? How do we grow together? And that's sort of the way that I see myself in Nairobi now. Nairobi's become a lot more conscious in terms of its health choices.
Yes, yeah.
One of our fellow photoshoot participants, Nixie, was kind enough to bring treats for us today. And when we say treats, if you now see what was offered to us post photoshoot, it's phenomenal, right? We got healthy quiches, we got Snickers protein balls and things like that.
Very delicious as well.
I'm pretty sure if we asked Nixie to have given us a snack post a workout a year ago or maybe 18 months ago, it would have been a
Very
big
different.
luscious cake with some samosas on the side or whatever it was. So when you start seeing that choice, it sort of it makes an impact. When I go to a friend's house now, they call me and ask, what sort of food would you like? And you're like, well, something grilled would be nice, a salad on the side would be nice. And all of a sudden, they're also finding that they can entertain at their household healthily, and people are enjoying it. So I don't look at myself as I still see myself as just a part of this community, not like anything else. I mean, if our journey keeps inspiring, then so be it. But we are a part of the community, and we all grow together.
Yeah, like you said, there might have been a different array of treats 18 months ago had this been the case. Where do you think that the direction of the city is going in terms of health? Let's say 5-year timeline. Where do you see the people of Nairobi being?
Nairobi is a place of extremes. I think in your time here, you'll also witness that. So
You can say that again.
I think it's evolving, and I think it's evolving quite nicely. 5 years down the line, I see that there's going to be a lot more healthier options, a lot more healthier choices. There'll be bigger communities and bigger awareness around the health and fitness space. As you sort of go down this rabbit hole, the deeper you go, the more information that becomes available. And I think the more knowledge that people have on this journey, the more informed decision that they can make for their own journey. And I think that's where the biggest change I see coming in the next 5 years will become more around the knowledge that people have, so that when they embark on whatever journey they choose to do, they'll be making it with knowledge rather than following blindly. So I think fundamentally the biggest shift that will happen is from that side.
And perhaps more choices as well, because of when you gain more knowledge, like you said, there's a bigger opportunity for choice. But if you look around and you recognize that the choice that I want to make isn't available, as we've said, in some senses, there are many cities around the world that are significantly easier in terms of availability of certain nutritional choices, availability of facilities from a gymming perspective or personal training, whatever that might be. So I would imagine it's probably going to take a big shift from that perspective as well, in terms of people recognizing what they need and then saying, well, if there's no solution in my city, I will go ahead and make that solution, right?
Well, I mean, we're already seeing that, right? Like there's this homegrown protein powder that's come up. So why did that come up? It's because imported protein powders are significantly more expensive. So there is a local need for that. So you can see that we've already got the homegrown protein powder. You look at the cheese industry per se. Many years ago here, like having mild cheddar was a luxury. Nobody even thought about camembert or Emmental and things like that
Provolone,
now.
like your son loves.
Correct, like a provolone, like Neo loves. So when as you start seeing people are making that, like if I don't get a healthy bar, I'm going to make it at home, and we're starting to see that. You're starting to see that when you go to people's houses or when you go to paddle's pretty big in Kenya. When you go to the paddle courts, you start to see that there's choices available, and when new restaurants are opening now, they're also trying to make uh, a healthier offering. So you can see that people are starting to make choices, and where it's not available, they're trying to make it available.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it scales so that a broader part of the community is able to benefit from the same health treats or the health consciousness that's developing. Um, and yeah, I think at some stage it will become scalable and it'll become a pretty important part of society here.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is that the market is there. Even with what we did yesterday at the event and showing that healthy is a conscious choice and it's available to you to make, like it was very well received, right? It wasn't as if people were like, well, I don't really want that stuff. I'm going to stick with my more traditional ones. They were actually very curious, very interested, and very much like, yeah, we want a little bit more of this. It'd be amazing if we went to these events because that would make my journey significantly easier. 100%. So it's exactly what we do. We're like, well, typically all of those canapes would be on the 200, 300, 400 calorie side, and there would only be wine and beer available. But I love that we made that statement yesterday, and I think that that's what it's all about. It's like seeing the gap and then saying, okay, how can we fill it in the best way? So I'm excited to see the growth and the progression, and we're going to be here to see it as well. So what's next for you and your journey?
My next, I think now starts becoming more technical, because I think we went through a fat loss, and then we went through a muscle building, and now I'm intrigued, to say the least. I'm intrigued to see how we can evolve the body from a muscular perspective. That is, there are different types of muscular activity that we can do to enhance the body's strength. I no longer look at strength from a purely bulging ab perspective. I look at strength from a core perspective. That is the core strong? Are we able to do pull-ups? Are we able to do perhaps like calisthenic style exercises? So I think if I truly look at it, I think the evolution is going to be maintaining a lean physique with pure strength. And I think that's possibly where this rabbit hole is leading. I think it's still a work in progress, but it's around that. It's trying to live a very balanced life, incorporating all the things that I like to have. Like to have my meals out, like to have my wine, like to be physically active, and maintaining a lean and toned physique. So I think that's essentially the objective for the next phase.
Yeah, and we're going to make it happen. And one question I have to ask you before we wrap up is, what do you think it's going to take for you to really integrate these changes that you've made in terms of seeing those photos and knowing that it's you, or seeing the credit that people that give you, and they literally look you in the eye and they say, you inspired me to start this journey. It wasn't anything to do with my own motivation. I saw what you did and I decided to take action. What do you think it's going to take for you to integrate that and say, yeah, that was me, and yes, that is me?
I never want to be a one-hit wonder, so to speak. We never, like, in as much as this phase culminated in a photo shoot, the photo shoot was just a part of the journey. I don't think it was that, like, we'll go from X to Y, photo shoot done.
It's not a finish line by any means.
Correct.
No.
So we never looked like a photo shoot was essentially just like a step along the journey per se. So I think, they look too good to give up. So having the abs and seeing the abs and seeing the muscle and seeing the triceps and sort of seeing the muscles, it just looks nice. Like you feel really good about what you've achieved. And I don't think it's something that even Shivali or Nixie, I think who participated in this photo shoot with us, I think if you ask them, I think both of them are going to have the same answer, that we, like if I don't want to blow my own horn, but we look good.
Hey,
yeah, you all look damn good. We're not going to let that go just after one photo shoot. Ultimately, I think so. History should remember us as the guys that got the six-pack and stayed with it. I think that's the objective that we should all have.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that perspective as well. And I get what you're saying in the sense that you don't want to get too carried away with the highs, and you also don't want to get too carried away with the lows. You just want to keep going on that journey, essentially. And like you said, it's that you can celebrate those checkpoints, but it's never a point where you're like, well, actually, this is the checkpoint, and maybe, comfort zone started slipping in and stuff. So I get that as well, and I do understand that perspective. And then for anyone who's had some success on their journey, as you did, and they're wanting to level up, this is more the question I want to ask you, because if that's the position you found yourself in, it's not just a sense of saying, well, I need to get in shape. You didn't need to get in shape with this journey, but you were like, I'm choosing to challenge myself. What would you say to anyone who's sitting on the fence about taking themselves to the next level, not starting their journey, but to say, what about if I took that next step forward? What would you say to them?
Do it. I mean, it's one of the most, I found the last 3 months one of the most joyous and rewarding of my life. I think in terms of the liberations that I found, in terms of the joy that I found in experiencing the journey. I think when you do a fat loss phase, it's sort of a new experience, and you're learning things along the way. Whereas in phase 2, we made a lot of conscious choices, a lot of decisions, and you're able to see the ramifications of those decisions. And I think the power in understanding the ramifications of a decision that you make is second to none. So if you're sitting on the fence, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I would highly encourage anybody who wants to step up their game and take it to the next level, find the coach that works for you, find someone who you can gel with, find someone whose philosophy is aligned to you, take that next step, and the rewards are beyond magical once you're on that journey.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. And it's not just a health and fitness journey, it's a self-awareness journey. And each time you challenge yourself to take yourself to that next level, it's like you open up another can of worms that you didn't know was hiding beneath the other one.
100%.
And it's only fascinating to discover what's beneath. Yes, it's difficult, but it's also fascinating. And I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, but I would much rather know what lies beneath than to live my life without discovering those things. It can be a fascinating journey. It can be an intimidating and a scary one, but it can also be very empowering. Yep. Any closing thoughts from you?
10 years ago, I made a promise, and thanks to you, I lived up to that promise. So it's one of the most fulfilling things for me to be able to go to Sandhya and tell her that I told you so. I told you that I'll be one of the few husbands that loses weight over the course of a marriage and not put on weight. So it's a really proud feeling that I've had, and I've truly enjoyed all the phases and all the journeys that we've been through. And I look forward to testing the body further and seeing what else we can achieve together.
We will certainly be doing that. We will be continuing to redefine the term dad bod. That's what we'll be doing.
Yeah, great word.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
congratulations on everything you've achieved in the second stage of the journey. As I said to you yesterday, one of the most impressive transformations that I've witnessed, both mentally and physically. And I've just had the privilege of being alongside you on this journey, and I'm excited to see what comes next as well. Like I said, I don't think I'm ever getting rid of you, and I don't want to either. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for everything you've achieved on your journey as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.